So I want you to imagine that you're 27 and you enter a room where people are very different from you, and they look very different, they speak very different. That was me. I entered into a shutdown. It was shut down in one of the facilities I worked at, and I got in, and as always, I was the only one in the room. And I came into the counter with all my happy face, and the guy at the other side, huge, big guy, um, shout out loud, very, very loudly. Every time she comes here, my skin starts scratching. I felt so little. I felt so small. And I looked around, and everyone looked at me, not to offer a hand of help, but to laugh or to make comments to each other. That was the reality I was faced when I started my career in STEM. Thank you for being with me here. My name is Monica Hernandez, as they say. And I want, just like the previous panelists, I want to bring attention to the fact that this happens still today. And it happened to me everywhere that I worked, in Colombia, in Canada, in the Middle East, everywhere. And so at some point, I decided to be the voice for all those 27-year-olds that don't know what to do and that feel very small at some point in their lives. I came to realize that when we say violence, when we use that term, we normally picture a husband beating on a wife, and that is not it. It is not enough of a definition. We also experience violence at work. And at some point, you have to say, this is enough. And I said it, and you're going to see through my presentation, how did I manage that? Lots of things happened to me in this realm of STEM. Particularly when I started looking at harassment, everyone talks about sexual harassment, but it's still like a taboo. It's some of those things that nobody speaks about, and then it's like nothing happens here. About 60% of women say they have been in Canada sexual harassed. Out of those, 90% of them are coming from an underrepresented group, like a Latino girl. What is really bothering me is that the harassment, like ideally comes, or ideally no, but normally comes from someone that has higher authority. So what is this teaching? This is teaching other people to treat that person the same way. And that is what I have seen. In my experience, for example, I had one of my ex-bosses handing me the hotel key and saying, I am in room 320 in the Delta Hotel around the street. And I looked at me and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not dressed sexy. I didn't do anything to provoke this behavior. The only thing that happened at that moment in my life is that I was divorcing. So he literally walked into my office and offered his hotel key. As when we enter STEM, the disparity between men and women is not that big of a problem on the salary gap. But then as I climbed the ladder, I realized I am even more alone. I am even more like I am the only one. And then you have all those other things. You're being harassed. You have all those pressures. You have the babies. And then you're being paid a whole lot less for the same things that other people are being paid. So it's also that is something that is happening. And then when women get to this level and they decide to quit, we ask ourselves why. We are giving them opportunities. What is happening? They can with this. So obviously what happens is we can't deal with all of that and we get sick, and I got very sick. And it was a very difficult moment in decision in my life. At that moment, I had to decide what do I gonna do? How do I gonna do it? And do I really want to keep on doing this fight on my own? So I started to understand that if you're not sustainable, now that we speak about sustainability all over the place, if you're not sustainable with yourself, if you go to a doctor and the doctor's smoking and he says, hey, dude, you know, smoking is really bad for you, are you going to believe the doctor? No. So how are you going to be a good leader if you're not really helping yourself first? If you're not giving you all that thing that wasn't that is what gives the power to make other people thrive. So I looked around and I found all those marvelous women that were predecessors to us, and that I'm so grateful. Some of them had to dress as a man to go to university and just there to study engineering because hello. And I said, okay, we can do something different. And that's when I started to make the link. How can I build myself in a way that I can protect myself, but also other people? Because this was not something that was only happening to me. I did perceive it that way, though, because when it happens to you over and over, it becomes like a norm. But then speaking to other people, I realized is not really the case. So making the link with connections and then forgetting a little bit about the technical is the most important thing, which is what we in science, they tell us technical calculations, your spreadsheets, your EI, everything now, it's so important. But the humanistic part, your empathy, those things that makes us women have the feelings of humans. So I realized that I needed to start communicating in a way that it was really powerful. And I went and certified myself as a leadership team member on the Maxwell Group. And that training changed my life because I was able to understand how to make things work in the way I wanted them to work. And then I said, if I won't get the opportunities, the salary, or the respect.
Monica, sorry if you can hear us in the room. We lost your audio. Can you hear us, Monica?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Now we have your audio back. Sorry about that.
Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I created Infinity Growth and I became a really good advocate to extend the ladder. And what that means is wherever I climb, wherever I go, I'm going to extend that path to other people, just like those pioneers did in the past, because it is just right. Not because someone is telling me to do it. It's just because it is right. Because I don't want any of your children, any of my children, or any of your sisters or wives to go through the same stuff that I went, because it doesn't feel good. So I started speaking with other women and I brought them to my podcast. And in the podcast, we speak about the marvelous things that they do in the technical side, but also we bring that human side that nobody talks about. And it's been amazing to see how open they are to share all their experiences. So all those are extracts from people, real people that work today in engineering, real women that have said this to me. The first one says, it is not if it is going to happen, but when it is going to happen. And I guess you can imagine that she was talking about sexual harassment. And she's a brilliant welding engineer, one of the only ones in the world. This person told me today, even to this day, they keep me out of important meetings where decisions are being taken. And she built the one corrosion center in the Middle East. They even told me to drop it, that it was not for me and I could not do it. She's in Colombia. You don't realize that you're thirsty because there is no water. Claudia teaches in the University of Alberta, and she worked in corporate, and she also, like me, left because she was fed up with all the things that were happening around her. So things are real, and you are seeing a person that has suffered a lot of things, and that we needed to go and find stuff. For example, coveralls. None of the coveralls when I was pregnant would have fit me. So I had to very unsafely tape it to make it work. Have you ever been in a washroom in an offshore facility? They didn't have baskets. So you had to take your feminine products every month and see where you can dispose it. So one of the things that I did also is building your toolkit. I created a free training for women. With all these experiences, obviously I don't go so emotional in the training, but I give a lot of tools, of little things that helped me throughout my career. And I hope you guys can share this to anyone that you think will benefit, because this is all about how we can, as a community, extend the ladder and make things better. I'm gonna leave you with this. How are you extending the ladder today?